Chloe was brought up by one father. She knew her mother only from photographs. Daddy didn't like to talk about it, but once he said, "How much you look like your mother. You have the same tender look and voice, as if you were singing." He immediately turned away, as if he wanted to pour tea, but his hand treacherously trembled. The cup was about to fall. Chloe was 16 at the time, and she was frightened, the way she had never seen her father before. "Daddy, sit down. Let me pour you a cup of tea," the girl said, and took the cup from his hands. A long time ago, when she was 7 years old, she asked her father, "Did Mom leave us? Why? Am I bad?" Her father's face went pale, but all he said then, in a trembling voice, was, "What? My angel? Of course not. It's just that Mom is very far away now, but she's always watching you, and being happy. Today, for instance, she's happy that she brought an A." He even tried to smile, so as not to frighten the kid. Years later, the girl grew older. Her father told her that her mother was a very beautiful and kind woman. They had been in love since high school, and as soon as age allowed, they married. For 3 years after the wedding, they literally dusted each other off. When Anna said she was pregnant, her father jumped and shouted joyfully, like a boy, for almost half an hour. And then he twirled around as much more, picking her up in his arms. Chloe's mother, in his words, carried her pregnancy very easily. However, she wanted ice cream almost around the clock. When her due date came, her father was very nervous. He almost gave up the business and tried to be with his beloved wife around the clock. At 3 in the morning, when the contractions began, he called the ambulance and shouted, "Girl, I'm begging you. My wife is giving birth. Hurry the car, hurry." On the other end of the line, learning that it was the first delivery, they said, as if with a chuckle, "Daddy, calm down. Wait for the car. The first one that's available will come to you." "How's the first one that's free? He's got a wife giving birth." The father helped his mother gather her things and, driving his car out of the garage, rushed to the maternity hospital. He did not remember how much time had passed. When the nurse who came out repeated his last name several times, he jumped up on the bench like a scalded man. "Rejoice, Daddy, you have a girl." At that moment he was so happy that he sank down on a bench with a silly smile, forgetting to ask about Anna's condition. After sitting like that for about 10 minutes, he came to his senses and ran to the information desk window and asked, "Tell me what's wrong with Mummy? You know, the one who just gave birth to a girl?" And gave his wife's last name. The elderly nurse looked at him sympathetically and in a quiet, soothing voice said, "Honey, pray for her. Your love is in a coma. God willing, she'll pull through." 3 days later, her mother died of blood loss, never regaining consciousness, and never saw Chloe. The girl finished school, with a diligent student and the pride of her father. After school, her father suggested that she go abroad to study, but she flatly refused, saying that she would enroll on her own, on general grounds. And so it happened. Chloe, with a competition of 5 people per place, entered a prestigious university by herself. Her father, except as an angel, sunshine, my joy, did not call her anything else. Chloe was meaning of his life. For those well-being, he worked day and night creating his own business. About 6 months before the car accident that killed him, her father started talking about her marriage almost every day. He insisted that Chloe get married as soon as possible. They say that people with heightened intuition can sense their death. This seemed to be the case. Chloe could not yet understand why he wanted her to get married so much, since she had just turned 20. At that time, she was being courted by 2 young men. One was her former classmate Andrew, who had been following her around since the 5th grade, and the other was a promising manager in his father's company, Peter. Already after her father's death, the girl guessed that he, with a premonition of death, wanted to leave his daughter in care and custody of someone else. Peter understood that Chloe was a profitable match for him, and he tried in every way to curry favor with his future father-in-law. He literally looked in his mouth and was ready to carry out any order. Chloe, on the other hand, could not make her choice between 2 suitors for a long time, but Peter turned out to be more persistent, and he knew how to court more exquisitely, and Chloe agreed to marry Peter. Andrew had no choice but quietly put down his knight's armor and step aside. Soon he was married to a classmate with whom he had studied together at the university. His father generally liked Peter, and he was even glad that his daughter had finally decided to take this step. It was only as he was sensing something wrong again. He urged him to draw up a marriage contract. At the same time, he tried to explain to his daughter that he and she would feel safer this way. After all, it is only for her. He has worked all his life, so he wants his daughter to be protected in case of unforeseen circumstances. Chloe respected her father very much. That's the only reason she agreed. Preparations for the wedding were nearing completion. They booked a restaurant, sent out invitations, bought rings, a dress, and a suit. It was going to be a grand celebration. The father was not stingy for the sake of his beloved and only daughter. More than 100 guests were expected. Just a week before the celebration, the evening bell rang, and an unknown voice uttered terrible words. It was a traffic policeman who said that Chloe's father had died in a car accident. Chloe woke up few hours later. After the arrival of the ambulance, the wedding had to be postponed. Peter at the moment helped her in everything, organized the funeral, and took over the management of the firm. Chloe, on the other hand, was as if in a dream. It was as if a shroud passed her father's funeral. In all the following months, the wedding was more modest than anticipated and did not bring her much joy. For the girl, it was already mere formality, so to say, the execution of her father's will. After the marriage, the newly married husband plunged headlong into work. At first, he tried to be on time, and they had quiet family dinners together. But as time passed, he began to stay at work longer and longer. Chloe tried to explain herself that her husband worked from morning till late at night to provide for the family. He tried to make sure that his wife does not need anything, just like before. Each time, he would explain it away with another negotiations with his parents or an unscheduled meeting. Each time, he would come back and pretend to be very tired. He explained that running a business was a very difficult job, taking a lot of time and energy, and who better than her to understand that, since her father had worked like that all his life. She tried not to think about anything bad, but some little worm of doubt gnawed at her from within, and her husband's attitude toward her had changed a lot lately. He used to kiss her when he left in the morning, and when they fell asleep, he always hugged her. Now he quickly ran away muttering, "Bye, my love, see you tonight. I may be late." And before going to bed, even worse, he would immediately turn away on his side and fall asleep. She was embarrassed by all this, but her husband, each time he was late, managed to be very convincing about the reasons for being late. And so it happened, time after time. They saw each other for a couple of hours a day, and then without much communication. But Chloe had no good reasons to suspect her husband of anything, only her speculation. She sorely missed his attention and love. She almost every day began to remember how Peter beautifully would, what gifts and compliments he gave, how he made every effort to get them married, but it did not last long. The idyll lasted literally 6 months after the wedding, and then, obviously, waning. Flowers and gifts disappeared. Compliments are the thing of the past. Well, at least they still said good night to each other. If her husband managed to return before Chloe fell asleep, sometimes it even seemed to her that they lived as communal neighbors or brother and sister. The only joy she had was the occasional family get-together with her childhood friends, James and his wife Mila. They remained friends and now communicate with each other as families. That evening, Chloe happily set the table. She cooked her husband's favorite dishes. She baked stuffed mushrooms in the oven and made a Caesar salad, which he adored. She even baked a pie with chicken. For some reason, the hostess was especially nervous this evening. Although it was not the first time they had gathered, the guests arrived on time, and Chloe happened to see her husband and Mila looking at each other, as if there was some secret between them that only they knew. When her husband, having changed, came out, he was wearing a painfully familiar tie, but which Chloe did not buy. Memories of a month ago came to mind. She had met Mila in the city then, and wandered through stores. In one of the men's boutiques, her friend had bought just such a tie, saying that she would make James happy and give it to him for no reason. Chloe could not understand how the tie that was supposedly bought for James ended up being worn by her husband. But despite even such obvious facts of her husband's secret life, she continued to comfort herself with the thought that, well, That's just her assumptions. But that crept earlier worm of doubt all continued to gnaw Chloe from the inside. No matter how she reassured herself, being a grown woman, she still decided to see if the inner voice was right. The first thing that came to mind was to talk to her old, faithful friend James about it. She gently asked why he did not wear the same tie, but the childhood friend, very surprised, said, "What tie? And if you remember, I haven't really liked to wear them at all since school." It all became clear. The tie was given to Peter by Mila, which confirmed the idea that they were lovers. She also learned from her conversation with James that Mila had also become very cold to her husband lately. And the other day, when he went to take out the garbage, a pregnancy test was sticking out the back. Carefully pulling it out, James saw, so expected by many women, two stripes. Maybe under other circumstances, he would have been happy. But the fact is that he and his wife had not been close for a long time. On reflection, James and Chloe decided to appeal to a friend of his father, who had his own detective agency. Once, Chloe's father helped him a lot in a case, and he remained his debtor and did not have time to thank him. Benjamin listened to them carefully, and after thinking about it, agreed to help. Detectives assigned to the pair of lovers watched them for several days and confirmed that indeed, between Peter and Mila, there is a love affair. Moreover, they found out some shocking things. It turns out that when a couple of years ago, Chloe could not get pregnant, Peter secretly took the test in a private clinic, and the results did not come. So in that test was a record saying that he was infertile. It turned out that James' wife was also having an affair with someone else. A couple of days later, as if nothing had happened, Chloe offered to sit at their places again. When both couples were at the table, Chloe and James surprised their lovers with a whole package of photos, videos, and audio recordings of their meeting. Finally, they showed them Peter's discharge from the clinic. What started there? The lovers almost killed each other and yelled so much that they wanted to plug their ears. But Chloe still had dirt on her husband's fraudulent activities in his father's business, which she handed over to the police. It turned out that revealing her husband's love affair, she learned that Peter had long ago decided to bankrupt his wife, withdrawing all the money from the accounts of the company abroad, where he planned to run away with his mistress. As a result of the investigation, Peter was jailed, and Chloe divorced him even before the verdict was announced in court. Mila gave birth to a child, seemingly without even knowing from whom, and was left alone with him. Only Chloe and Andrew were happy with the outcome of these events. Their feelings flamed up with a renewed vigor, and they, having met for some time, began to live together. The lovers believe that soon there will be three of them, because now nothing stands in the way of that.